6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. I'll do it again. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Okay, let's wait for our friends to come over. Here you can get the seats in the front, please. Hello, Frederick. Good to see you again. Still thinking about your input the other day. I'm getting there. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here. We'll come to the last pillar of our sessions, and it's a meaningful pillar. In fact, we'll be talking about meaningful work. I will be introducing some amazing guests that we have here this afternoon. Can we have some silence, please, in the back? That is wonderful. So we'll have some guests to introduce to you this afternoon, wonderful guests and friends. But when talking about meaningful work and its expression through Vision 2030, and when we talk about young people, what is the dream of a young person when we all to have basically two things. To have a space where to participate, to be given a space, and obviously that means a voice, but also to be able to be sustainable in time. And to be economically sustainable is an issue today for young people. So when Vision 2030 decided to tackle this issue of meaningful work, we were putting in the center of the strategy and the vision the needs for youth to be in an environment in which they can feel safe and listened, but at the same time in which they can feel that there's a future. Now, and that has a lot of components. Has components probably among the three other pillars. So that's why I was from the very beginning really passionate about meaningful work. And within the planning group, I specifically asked to be helping out with this pillar. We did have a pleasure to connect immediately with someone which is really special as a colleague for us at World YMCA that I'll introduce in a second. But before I introduce her, just to tell you that one of the experiences that we have value more at YMCA Europe within Vision 2030 has been the increased collaboration with World YMCA. So the real expression of Vision 2030 for us as an organization has been that in a very strong way, we as YMCA Europe were able to walk alongside with World YMCA, not only in designing the vision, but in implementing, understanding. In fact, this event is our first expression of our willingness to activate Vision 2030. And this has been an effort, because at the same time as we planned this event and were able to run this event, we had massive aspects to take care within our regular program as YMCA Europe, as you all know. If you were here at the General Assembly, it's been a very intense year for us. But we still wanted to, as fast as possible after Aarhus, after the World Council, to make sure that we as an organization will have something practical, visible, that was realistic on the implementation of Vision 2030 in our area. And that's why we're doing this event in this format with the 4 pillars. So with our gratitude to the World Alliance of YMCA, Carlos and his team, it is my real pleasure to introduce you to Kathleen Elsey. Kathleen is the Director for Global Partnerships at World YMCA. Kathleen has put enormous amount of passion, not only in the session that you're about to attend and to participate, but also in the recent partnerships that YMCA Europe was able to develop through Accenture, through HP, and a number of national movements in Europe. So Kathleen, thank you so very much. You are very welcome here. This is your home, and the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Juan. Thank you for that warm welcome. Thank you, everybody. I'm so excited to be here in Berlin with you today, and in some ways to celebrate now this very last session of an incredible few days together. I can't believe how quickly it's gone by. Some of us have been here since Wednesday, and it has really zipped by. Berlin is an amazing city. It's an amazing city, and it has a personal meaning to me as well. I studied in Berlin. I did my master's degree here at the Humboldt University in Berlin, and I started on my career journey here in Berlin. So my very first job was here in Berlin, and it set me off on a career trajectory that I believe helped very much to bring me to where I am today with the World YMCA in partnerships, doing a lot of work with corporations and various institutions, bringing people together around topics that we are all passionate about. But I have to say that when I started that job in Berlin, here in Berlin, I was working with Mercedes, and I remember that first week was actually a bit excruciating. I had to all of a sudden get up every single day at 7 a.m., get over to the tram, get on the tram, and commute. And for me, that was an absolute horror. After having been a student and really, really flexible, to think I am all of a sudden tied into a daily schedule, I am a commuter. But I had an incredible team and an incredible job, and it worked out amazing, and living in a city like Berlin was absolutely incredible. So I'm delighted to be here with you to celebrate this very last session, the end of this event, but of course the beginning of so much to come. We have got an inspiring program for you this afternoon with several great speakers. They're here up front or mixed into the audience. I'll bring them up in a few minutes. But I think what's very, very important is that this is a session that is actually for you. We are building a program, the Meaningful Work pillar, that we are going to coordinate and guide and support, of course, from the World YMCA. But this will only live if it lives with you and is implemented through you and by you in your YMCAs. So I do look forward to this session being, like the other ones, interactive. We will have several question and answer sessions, and I would like to encourage you to listen, to express your opinions. We also want to learn from you. So there will be some microphones that are going out. So let me tell you real quick how this is going to work. We're going to spend maybe 60, maybe 90 minutes together. And I hope it will be interactive. That will depend a bit on you all. So please do help us make it interactive. We're going to kick off with a very visual, interactive keynote presentation by Nick. I'll bring him up on the stage in a moment. And then Nick and I are going to sit down. Nick has had some incredible experience throughout his own personal career journey that has brought him to where he is today, doing a lot of work with young people around the world. And then we're going to sit down and chat, and the microphones will be passed around to you as well. I'd like to invite you to be part of the conversation. Afterwards, we're going to bring up our incredible panelists, some of whom you know. Victoria Trofimova from YMCA Ukraine, who is now working at Y Nuremberg, is going to come up and share some of her experiences with us. Thank you, Victoria. We'll have some perspectives from Spain as well. Many of you have worked with Pedro and YMCA Spain. I'm always learning new things. Every time Pedro and I speak, I'm like, I can't believe you guys are doing that. It's absolutely incredible. So I think we can learn a lot from one another. We don't just have to look, of course, at what's going on outside the YMCA. You guys are doing so many incredible things, and the more we can learn about it and share, the stronger that we're going to be. And to that point as well, we do have a lot to learn from the outside. So then we'll have Kika George with us, who is from an incredible team called What If Accenture. And Kika has spoken with several of you today. She's spoken with several of you beforehand on the phone. She'll speak with several more of you, I think. Working with the Accenture What If team, Kika is helping to craft what is called opportunity platforms that will help us think through where YMCA, where we can be the best, where we can make a true impact for work and meaningful work for young people. And with that one key question we're going to be talking about today is, what is meaningful work? And can we develop a definition of meaningful work here in the YMCA that transcends all of the cultures, the geographies, the demographics that we work with? And we're going to need your input for that too. So I look forward to that. So with that, I'm going to stop talking, and I'm going to invite Nick to come up. Let me tell you a little bit about Nick while he's coming up here on stage. Thank you. Thank you, Nick. So Nick, come on up. Come over here. He's going to get set up, has a very interactive presentation. Nick is the co-founder and managing director of a super interesting program. I encourage you all to look it up online, called Changemaker Exchange. They are now based here in Berlin, but Nick has been kind of all over the world. The Changemaker Exchange community, just briefly, is a community of 1,000 changemakers from across the world, working on a vast range of social and environmental issues. Changemakers is on a mission to provide safe, supportive, fun, and empowering spaces for changemakers, young changemakers just like you. And they foster profound and lasting connections. I've understood community and connections is a big part of what you do at Changemakers. And Nick has also forged his own career pathway that's, not typical, but maybe it's a little bit more typical nowadays. So I'm not sure if you'll address it now, but if he doesn't address it now, we'll talk about it afterwards.
Afterwards, in the panel.
Very good. So with that, over to you, Nick.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. It's a pleasure to be here. So, first of all, I want to sense out a little. I've got a challenge that this is the last session. It's the session after lunch. We're in the party capital of Europe. The sun's shining. So I'm going to get you a little interacting and moving, maybe. First, show me how are your energy levels right now. If here is the ceiling and the floor is here, show me with your hands. Okay, mixed, some very high, some in the middle. So we're definitely going to need to do some moving. First, I want you to stand up or put your hand up. Wait. If you agree with what I'm going to say, okay, if that resonates with you. So the first one, stand up if you would like a job, a career, which is aligned with your values, which has purpose as part of it. Okay. Pretty consistent. Now stay standing up if you have a job or career which is aligned with your values and has purpose. Okay. Few people sitting down, very honest with themselves. Still lots of people standing up. Thank you for sharing. You can sit down again. Now I want you to stand up if you think your career of choice may be taken over and made obsolete by robots in the future. Okay. People there's a movement starting here. Okay. Thank you. I want you to now stand up or hand up if you have ever written a job application using ChatGPT. Okay. Does it have to be a job? No, then you're straight up. Okay. Okay. And last question. Stand up or hand up if you have taken action to tackle a social or environmental issue in your community around you. Okay. Thank you. Lots of change makers in the room, I see. So, I wanted to do this to get you engaging a little with some of the themes that I'm going to talk about in this talk around change making and meaningful work, topic very close to my own heart. And we're going to be touching on some of the most pressing issues, challenges facing the world today. And the world at the moment, I think as long as I can remember, people have been saying, oh, the world is changing so fast. It's a fast-changing world we're living in. Now it really is changing at lightning speed and feels a bit sometimes like we're teetering on the edge. We're at a crossroads as humanity. I don't know if you've seen the trendy definition for this of we're living in a VUCA world. Hands up if you've seen that one. 1, 2, 3, okay. This is a world which is volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous, and there's even been an H added later, hyper-connected. Meaning, basically, in short, it's crazy out there right now. And it's defined really by constant change. Change for different reasons. I know part of your conference already, and I was super happy to see your pledge on the climate crisis, is the planetary crisis we're going through right now. You can see that visual showing that every year recognizable increases in temperature. Used to be slowly over hundreds of millions of years. Every year it's increasing, and that has a knock-on effect onto pretty much everything in our lives. From sea levels increasing again every single year from that beautiful NASA visualization, to food systems, droughts, the way we work, people, migration, conflicts, all often, if you go to the root, it's got the climate crisis at it. But, and this is the depressing part of the talk, it's going to get a bit lighter afterwards. Climate crisis is just one part of this. We're also having the biodiversity crisis alongside this. The WWF, World Wildlife Fund report last year shows average species decline of 69% since 1970 until now. And not just these cute guys, but pollinators, insects, fish, everything that we need for a healthy ecosystem. The third part of it, pollution. That's not an apocalyptic picture from the future. That's from New York earlier this month. With pollution from the wildfires in Canada. And apparently 9 out of 10 of us, according to the World Health Organization, are breathing air filled with pollutants above unsafe levels. So why am I talking about this? What has this got to do with the world of work? This planetary crisis is completely unsustainable. It means we need to fundamentally rethink our economy, our way of work, which means there's a revolution coming. I don't know how many of you would have stood up if I'd asked, do you have a green job? Anyone? Okay, nice. 1, 2, 3, 4. You have a green t-shirt at least. 6. I think this is going to change. If I ask this again in 5 years, most people will stand up. We're going to need a real green jobs revolution just to survive as a society. Green plumbers, green electricians, green insurance brokers, green architects, green engineers. The list is endless. That's one trend, the green revolution. The other, just as powerful, is the revolution driven by disruptive technologies. You can see here this product launched by Apple last month, transforming you to other worlds without the need of a screen anymore. We've also had Mark Zuckerberg trying, and fortunately failing so far, to get us all into the metaverse. And this is one thing. Much more powerful even is the rise and the emergence of generative artificial intelligence. ChatGPT, just the tip of the iceberg, and complete revolution in how we're going to work. And a few examples of that. The first one is how fast it's been adopted. It's the fastest adopted web platform ever, ChatGPT. It took Netflix 3.5 years to get to 1 million users, Instagram 2.5 months, even crazy ones like TikTok, Snapchat took them much, much longer. ChatGPT went to this in 5 days. And that's why lots of people are calling to, okay, pause, slow down. Even Elon Musk, who is not known for his pause, slow down philosophy. And just to give you a quick anecdote on how powerful this technology is, there was some research going on from a group called ARC. They set ChatGPT some tasks. to see what limits would it go to complete these tasks. And it came across an obstacle, which was the CAPTCHA form. You know, when you visit some websites, you have to fill out the numbers to say you are not a robot. ChatGPT is, of course, a robot and cannot do this because it depends on your web history and all this kind of thing. So do you know what it did? ChatGPT went on to a freelance hiring website called TaskRabbit, and it hired a human to do this for it, to fill out the CAPTCHA form. The human said, "Why would you want me to do this? Are you a robot?" Haha, lol, laughing face. And ChatGPT said, no, I have a vision impairment that makes it hard to see the images. And this is today, so AI is already hiring us and able to trick us. So it's super, super powerful, and lots of predictions are showing that many jobs are going to become obsolete as a result of this. Some thought leaders are saying we're going to have a generation of useless humans in some way. Others are rather more positive. Looking at the short term, the World Economic Forum Future of Jobs says that the displacement and creation of jobs is actually very similar, that there are going to be as many jobs created by both the climate crisis and emerging technologies than there are displaced. But there'll need to be a huge reshuffle, retraining of different people on this. So what does this all mean for what skills we need to thrive in this VUCA, volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous world? There are lots of lists out there. You can see the World Economic Forum, top skills you're going to need for 2025, 2030, Forbes, 21st century skills, etc., 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 etc. I'm not going to add to that debate or to try and highlight some of those skills, because I think, really, it's just too uncertain. I think the job market of 2030, 2035, 2040 is just too unpredictable to know exactly what skills you need. So I'm going to show you instead a few quotes that I think encapsulate this really nicely. First one is from Harari, great thinker around AI and the future of work. What he said is that the most important skills for surviving and flourishing in the 21st century are actually not particular skills, not like problem solving or certain kinds of technical skills, but the most important skill is how to master new skills again and again and again throughout your life. So having that lifelong learning mindset, constant thirst, curiosity to pick up new tools, skills, knowledge. Another quote, going back a bit further in time, this one, saying it's not the strongest of the species who survives, nor the most intelligent, but the one that is most adaptable to change. Who do you think that was? Darwin. Yes, Mr. Darwin. And I think this is even more relevant today when we're living in a world defined by change, that actually it's those of us who are most adaptable, resilient, and able to navigate that change that are going to be the ones who can thrive. Final quote. This was from Google's head of education, Jaime Casap, who said that what does this mean for how we talk to our kids, what advice we give to people leaving university, said that don't ask them what they want to be anymore, that this question is now totally obsolete. Ask them what problems do they want to solve. And I would even edit this a little and say, ask them what impact do they want to create? What mark do they want to leave for the good of society? And I'm going to share with you now a few examples of people who are doing that, creating an impact in the world. And I've had the real privilege of the last 15 years of working with some of the world's most innovative, most passionate, most driven young people who are creating solutions to the problems that we see. who are both thriving in this changing world themselves and also shaping this changing world themselves. And I'm going to do it through a little thought experiment. So I'm going to ask you to imagine a day in the life of using these products and services that have all been developed by young change makers. Many of them actually maybe you're using already but weren't aware of. So first, you wake up 7 a.m. like Kathleen in Berlin, getting on the tram. What's the first thing you do when you wake up these days? Huh? Check your phone, yes. Unfortunately, sadly, most people roll over straight away, checking your phone. But your phone is not an iPhone, of course. It's a fair phone, which is a phone made of completely ethically sourced parts, which is repairable, so you can take it, you can repair it yourself, and therefore it's long-lasting. It's an ethical phone. After that, you log on to your social media, probably. But not your Instagram, not your TikTok. You log on to Curve, which is a new platform built to reinvent social media. So it's not about chasing likes and followers, but about connecting people to movements, about inspiring people to take action. You then open a web browser. What web browser do you open? Chrome, Firefox. You should open Ecosia. With Ecosia, whenever you open this browser and make a search, it plants a tree for you in a biodiversity hotspot in the world. They've planted now hundreds of millions of trees around the world. You have a drink, it's thirsty work, all of this. You drink a Viva con Agua, which with everyone you buy, there are donations to water, wash, hygiene projects in the developing world. You get a coffee. And through that, while getting that coffee, there's a digital platform called Tip Me, where you can tip, not the waiter or waitress, you can still do that, of course, but you tip the farmer who grew your coffee beans transparently back in Ethiopia or Nicaragua. You then have your breakfast, which you get from Too Good To Go, a digital app which is about rescuing wasted food and connecting people to it. Maybe it's a Friday, you go to a protest organized by Fridays for Future, set up by 15, 16-year-olds and mobilized more people than any world leader around the climate crisis. You do some online shopping. You can use the browser Faircado, which gives you a second-hand alternative to anything new that you want to buy. You do your banking at an ethical bank where all your money is invested in companies which benefit people and planet. You work at a company which you've checked on WikiRate is not greenwashing, where you know its environmental and social performance, which crowdsources information to expose companies who are not in line with the values that you want to work with. Finally, and I know you have a party tonight, this has been a tough day, so you have a beer, and you have a toast ale, which is a beer made from waste bread in the UK, and a super tasty one at that. And at the end of it all, you deserve a good sleep, so you sleep on a mattress created by Matter, which is a repurposing and reusing some of the 600 million wasted mattresses, thrown away mattresses. They're on my street in Berlin all the time, changing them into new ones. So all of these products that you've seen, services, were created by people who are under 30 when they started them, sometimes as young as 18, 22, 25, all built by young change makers. People like Jonathan, like Sophia, like Michaela. And one thing, so we do a lot of research around these young people, what drives them, what are their biggest challenges, what are they working on? And one thing we found super interesting is we looked at their life happiness. So they had to answer a question on a scale of 1 to 10, how happy are you in your life? Because we could benchmark this against the global averages. The global average for people is 5.3 5, something like that. And for these young change makers, it's close to 7, really significantly higher. So even though they have huge challenges, the fact that they are following their purpose, that's our interpretation, makes them happy in their life. If they were a country, they would be the 14th happiest country in the world, which is between Canada, just after Canada, and above Ireland. But both very happy countries. You can see more of this research and data via our website, The Possibilists. Check it out. We just launched it last week. And on this topic of values and purpose, I think this is now getting to the core of what we're going to talk about, and I think would be a nice segue into the conversation. And we saw this with how many people stood up, and it's mirrored in all research. 8 out of 10 Gen Z workers say they want to put purpose first, that it's their main driver. And this brings me to, I think, probably you've seen it. It was a bit of a trend around social media at one point. A really beautiful concept on this, which are these overlapping circles. And the first circle shows what you can be paid for. Most of us, if we're lucky, can do a job that we can be paid for. The second circle shows what you're good at. For some people, this won't overlap. You could get someone really good at numbers, but who hates being an accountant. Next one is what you actually love doing. And the final one is what the world needs. What problems are we solving? And when you get all them together, there's a beautiful little sweet spot in the middle there, which comes from the Japanese concept called ikigai, meaning reason for being or finding your purpose. A super beautiful concept. There's also a guy, Hector Garcia, who wrote a book around this. He went to a little Japanese village called Ogimi, which has got one of the highest longevity in the world, people living routinely past 100 years old, interviewed lots of the villagers and found what the common thread was: not diet, not health, but the reason for their long and healthy lives was finding this ikigai, finding this passion and practicing it every day. So this is kind of the dream for I think most of us in terms of meaningful work. And as I wrap up, some quick tips I would give for getting started in your journey in change making and in making a difference in the world. Number 1, and I saw many of you stood up already, but find a problem and apprentice with it. Usually you apprentice with the solution. I would say what you need to do is apprentice with the problem. These social problems, environmental problems, are deeply rooted, deeply complex. Too many people are jumping to quick solutions to them, innovating. Rather, take your time to understand the problem. What system is it embedded in? How are the people affected by it feeling, thinking? Number 2, find your people. These problems are too big, too complex to be solved by one of you, one organization, even as big as the YMCA. We need radical collaboration to really tackle some of the problems I spoke about. Number 3, give yourself permission. Now, even those kind of rock star entrepreneurs that I showed you, our research showed that 50% of them actually suffer from imposter syndrome. I'm not good enough, I can't do this, I'm not creative enough, that they just had to get over. So give yourself that permission. Number 4, a mantra a little borrowed from the entrepreneurship world, but I think even more relevant: fall in love with the problem that you're trying to solve, not the solution. Your solution's going to need to change because the social environmental problem will definitely change. The idea that you had might not be fundable, or it might have some negative impacts that you couldn't foresee. Fall in love with the problem. And finally, is don't forget personal sustainability. Many of the people I showed you, despite their life satisfaction being very high, working themselves into the ground, burning out. Sometimes rest is resistance, and self-care is what you need to prioritize to be able to sustain your impact on the world. So don't forget personal sustainability. I'm going to wrap up now with one short message. And I think there's one thing that we often kind of overlook when we have these big meta-level conversations about the future of work, about skills, about the changing world, and that is that we kind of see ourselves as being the recipients of this changing world, that things are happening to us. But it's us who are changing this world. Everything around you created by people. We decide how fast the world changes, how it changes. So it's about what values, what morals, what ethics we go into whatever we do, which will impact how the world changes. We can see this AI revolution. It can be something that destroys humanity, or if we build it slowly, thoughtfully, with the good of people and planet at mind, it can be something which benefits us. Climate crisis, we can delay, deny, keep chasing profits and growth, or we can really see it as an opportunity to build a more just, equitable world. So I'll invite you all, as you leave your own mark on the world, as you do your change making, do it with the values and ethics that have the people and planet at the center. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Incredible.
Thank you. And if you want to check out more, those are the websites, and you can catch me on the old school social media ones, or grab me afterwards. I can also give you good advice about partying in Berlin. Okay.
That's maybe the most important thing. Thank you so much, Nick.
Very welcome.
Nick isn't going anywhere right now.
Okay.
He's staying with us. Nick, I'd like to invite you to take a seat, maybe here so everyone can see you. I'm going to sit over here. We're going to start a conversation. I'm going to kick it off with a few questions, but as mentioned, this is a session for you. This is your opportunity to learn, to talk, to discuss, to tease apart these issues that Nick has brought up and some other ones. I mean, they're pretty meaty issues, pretty serious. So I'm going to kick off with a couple of questions, and we have some microphones that are going to go around the room. So please raise your hand. Please stand up. There's a lot to talk about. So Nick, I'm just going to kick off. I mean, that was as inspiring as it was terrifying, I must say. I love the concept, and this was new. I think I've heard it floating around of VUCA. You know, I'm wondering on the one hand if that can be paralyzing for people. You talked a little bit about resilience and adaptability. You talked about not focusing on what you want to be, but rather the problem that you can solve. How can young people prepare for this, and how can we support young people to prepare for this?
Yeah, thanks for the question. I think it is the key question of this whole topic, and it's difficult, right? I think if you look at the climate crisis, we also did some research around this. I think it's 80% of young people feel really anxious about this, really extremely worried. And same with the emergence of AI. So I think it's about, it's not about sweeping those fears under the table and pretending they don't exist and telling people you must be adaptable, resilient. I think it's about first accepting and embracing a little those fears, and the fact that right now is a difficult time to be going into the world of work. And then after that, it's about trying to cultivate that learning to learn, that mindset of curiosity, that mindset of constantly trying out new things and changing a little that mindset of, okay, I'm going to be an architect, and that is definitely the only thing I want to be, and I want to specialize in this, which has been the way for so long, but is now potentially a dangerous route for some people. So I think it's going to I think it's going to be a long journey for us all in terms of educating, working with young people, and I think we need to start, first of all, with the education systems that are currently not set up to prepare young people for this world. But yeah, I think it's about developing a new mindset and new skills.
Fascinating and frightening at the same time. That I think is a good transition into what you're saying, starting with the education system, cultivating mindsets of adaptability, helping encourage young people to just fall in love with learning. We are at historic phase right now with YMCA. I think for the first time we have a framework for a truly global strategy, global action. You talked about the critical importance of collaboration. YMCAs do run schools in some countries, but largely I think we sit between school and work, school and life after work. In many ways, we accompany millions of young people every day. So we have this amazing opportunity right now, and we don't want to break it. We want to do the right thing. How do you think, what is the role that YMCA can play at this, for us, incredible time, but also this incredible time that you're talking about? We need a green revolution. There's a disruptive technology. Here we are emerging into this space with our first global framework. What role can YMCA play?
Well, I'm hugely excited, and it's why I'm here and why I happily accepted the invitation. I think YMCA as the biggest youth organization in the world has a duty to step up here and to be a role model also for other youth organizations in terms of forward thinking and looking at I think what needs to be radical approaches in transforming those formal or informal learning and education. I think certainly the German education system, which my daughter is in, the British education system I was in, the Turkish education system my wife was in, are all completely out of date now. They're teaching things which are useless, essentially, I think, for kids growing up. So I think the YMCA, given you have a little more freedom, not so bound by government curricula, etc., have a real possibility to innovate around some of these things, and that really prepare young people for this kind of world that I'm talking about.
I love that possibility to innovate, but also the word that you said, we have a duty. I think that's an incredible, very powerful word. So I'm going to stop now with questions, and I'd love to hand over to you all. It is our collective duty. It is your duty. You are at the forefront, every single one of you. We have youth workers here. We have national general secretaries. We've got our global secretary general here as well. We have a duty. We are at a transformational time in our history, our humanity's history. We've broken a lot of things. We have a duty to act. So what questions do you have? The question here. Okay.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Darina from YMCA Kosovo. Currently, you mentioned a bit about it, but we are finding young people quite confused about the future, and we can see how the gap between school and work is completely not, I wouldn't say completely, but this making young people quite confused. So the question is, as YMCA, let's just think of perhaps in Germany or whatever, in a European country, what would you suggest will be our approach towards the governments to raise the voice on this? Because it's not only the work we do with the young people, it's also speaking on behalf of that. So I see a lot of examples that you already did, the youth change things, and we are doing a lot of that in ground, but it seems that the government or institutions don't want to hear a lot of times and somehow ignore what young people are changing. So there is a gap here between civil society and governments to be able to have that link. So maybe that could be any advice on that aspect?
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for the question. I think it's a brilliant one, and I think it's something we've thought about a lot, and kind of touches on a really important point of intergenerational leadership. And I think young people, when they're often included in climate change talks or on advisory groups, etc., are often used super tokenistically and not really genuinely, meaningfully engaged in the actual decision making. So my advice for policymakers, people who want to really include young people in these fora, which I think we need to do. I think it's not just a matter of justice, because young people are the biggest, the people who are most affected by climate crisis, AI, by global inequality. So it's a matter of justice, but it's also bringing in the necessary perspectives. So I think to do that, and in our report, by the way, we have kind of 10, 12 recommendations for policymakers about how to meaningfully engage young people. Check them out. But the headline is genuinely give them a seat at the table. Don't run a little event on the side like they did at the last COP summit, children and youth tent, where you can push the young people over there, pretend that you're listening to them, but then get on with the real negotiations with them outside. Don't do that. Give them a real seat at the table, really eye-to-eye part of the decision-making. That's at the heart of it, I think.
Thank you, Nick. So, we can use I've understood our breadth, our depth, our tradition, the networks that we have to advocate to governments to genuinely engage young people. So that, as we think towards our strategy and how we're going to bring Vision 2030 to life, that could be part of our advocacy platform to governments. So one thing to think about. Maybe I'll take one more question or two more questions from you all, and then we're going to move to the next part of this this session. But of course, Nick is going to be around.
And walk the walk yourselves, yes, too. Get young people in your leadership positions, co-create this strategy eye to eye with young people. I think the more you can model that, the more you can then genuinely preach it to people like governments.
Thank you. Very important. So I think there's a question over here. Thanks. Right. And can you let us know your name and where you're from?
It's on. Okay. For me, the question is how you can create impact. For example, the solutions you propose. So I thought about Y2Go. There's a different approach called food sharing. So it's kind of a different mindset. So food sharing is trying to create common goods. So it's without some capital into it. While Y2Go is a private company which, pulls out capital from that. So there's quite a difference in the mindset and how you implement your solution approaches into an neoliberal world.
So the question
is which solutions or which approaches you are trying to implement those solutions into this context?
Yeah, thanks for, and I think you raise a really important point there about what is the ultimate intention for this. So the people that I showed you and the people that we support, they're a total mix of activists, some people who want to tear down the system and capitalism and build a completely new one, others who want to kind of more entrepreneurial style, want to work within the system and alongside the existing players. But all of the people I showed you, if they are building companies, then they're building companies which are completely social at their heart, that they are not making any profits for shareholders, that they all have a lock built into them so that the people who founded them are not trying to get rich with this, etc. But I think for us, we're relatively kind of entity agnostic in that we don't look at the kind of model that these young people use, and there are many different ones, but rather at the values that they have when they're setting these up. And I totally agree. I think that entrepreneurial, innovative approaches and energy often goes and I think it's a real tragedy, often goes in the wrong direction of trying to maximize profit for shareholders. And I think that's the key thing that's wrong and needs rewiring with our society. And I think if all the entrepreneurial energy and innovation that we had in this world actually went towards making a better society and tackling these social and environmental problems, then we wouldn't be in the real difficult situation that we're in right now. And I'm happy to continue that conversation with the beer, maybe. It's a good, juicy one.
Great, thanks, Nick. Is there another question out there? All right, here. Well, we'll take two then real quick. So back here. And if you could let us know your name and where you're from. Thank you.
Do I need to stand up?
No, as you wish.
So my name is Dima, I'm from Ukraine, and while listening to your speech, the most interesting thing for me was a day in the life of a future person. So like new social media, new apps, phones, and I have a question about how can we transfer to that, because comfort is one of the most important things in about users of these projects, and a lot of people are used now to all of the modern solutions like browsers, phones, and like apps. So for example, I think a lot of people in this room use iPhones, Apple products, and how would they switch to like a no-name phone? A lot of people, I'm sure, used to iMessages, like iPhone probably specific things and other stuff. Or people have been using, for example, Chrome or Firefox or any other browsers for years now. And how would we migrate?
Yeah, thanks. Great question. These, by the way, were all things which have been built and are working now, not in the future. I hope in the future they are as widespread as that, but these are all product services that people are using right now. I think what you're talking about is actually goes to the heart of the problem of all of this, which is that I think, and I don't want to get too rebellious on stage here, but I think that, capitalism is an extremely, it's a sticky model that we're all now kind of trapped in, and we're being convinced by huge marketing budgets that we need certain products, certain browsers, etc., and they become so deeply ingrained in our habits. But I think we have to anyway disentangle ourselves as humanity from this. I think we're on the road to destruction, oblivion even, if we do continue down this path. So we have to look at different solutions. We don't have a choice. I hope that the big companies will support with this and will also realize it. Because, otherwise there's no other way. So it's about changing mindsets first and then behavior, but it's not going to be easy, I admit that.
Thank you. Tough. We have one last question up here from Emma. I don't know, Anna, if you could come up. Emma, you had a question right here front. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Some really fascinating facts and insight. I think what really resonated with me was this high percentage of happiness in those young change makers. And I was wondering what role the YMCA can play in terms of nurturing happiness. Because if that's one of the key drivers for people's success in entering into more meaningful work, then we would be a great movement if we could focus on happiness. So I would be really interested in your insight in terms of what something like the YMCA as a global movement could do and contribute towards really helping our young people to be happy, and in doing so, helping them to then develop more meaningful work opportunities.
Yeah, awesome question, thank you. So, I mean, for us, and I have to say I'm a little biased in this space because it's how we do it and what we recommend, but I think our research shows that the key to happiness is having a real positive impact on the world. So what can YMCA do? It can support its young people to find their passion, first of all, find their superpower, and then to match that with a critical, pressing issue in their communities, whether that's social or environmental, and then there's nothing more empowering than matching those two things, than finding out, okay, with my passion and my superpower, I can make a real impact on tackling an issue that I'm seeing around me. That's really beautiful. Once people have found that power, it doesn't go away. So yeah, obviously that translates into lots of different programs and strategies, but my advice would be help young people find that power to change the world around them.
Incredible, thank you, Nick. So we're going to switch gears here, and I'm going to invite you all to stand up. I think we're going to hear some music possibly too, but stand up and get moving. And at that same time, I'm going to invite our panelists to join us here on the stage. I'm going to sit over here, and I'm going to invite you all to come here. We may have to share mics a little bit, but that's okay. So I'd like you to shake your legs out, and shake your arms out a little bit. Maybe turn to the right. Turn to your right. Oh, wait, thanks. Yeah, I think we will name one, yeah. So turn to the person, turn to the right. And give the person to your right a little massage. We've all been sitting here for a little while. Nice little massage. That's good. All right. I'd like a massage, actually. Jack, you want a massage? That feels good.
You want one? You're all right.
Thank you. All right, now turn around to the other side.
Okay.
And give
Maybe
the other person on the other side of you a little massage.
My wife is constantly requesting head massages these days.
All right, okay. Thanks so much, you guys. Do you just have a second? Fine, that's good. Do you want to do that? Yeah? Good.
All right, now we're going to dance and move with a little song. It might be kind of complicated and you might not know it. It is heads, shoulder, knees, and toes.
Didn't expect to be doing this.
And then faster. Head, shoulder, knees and toes, knees and toes. Head, shoulder, knees and toes, knees and toes. Eyes and ears and mouth and nose. Head, shoulder, and then a faster one. Head, shoulder, knees and toes, knees and toes. Head, shoulder, knees and toes, knees and toes. Eyes and ears and mouth and nose. Head, shoulder, knees and toes, knees and toes. Well done.
Thanks, you guys. You guys are amazing. All right, we're going to continue now with a chat about meaningful work, where we're going to hear some other perspectives from some YMCA colleagues and from Kika, who's joining us here from England, who's with the What If Accenture team. So what I'm going to do is invite you all to have a seat. We're missing maybe one mic, but I think, no, we're good. All right, we're all good. And I'm going to take a seat over here. Now, what I'd like to invite each of you to do is introduce yourself very quickly. We've heard from Nick, so we're not totally under time pressure, but we do want to keep things moving. I'm going to invite each of our panelists to introduce themselves quickly, your name, what you're doing, and talk a little bit about what meaningful work is for you. Maybe touching here on your personal journey and a moment in your journey that has been particularly key in forming who you are. So maybe we'll start here with Kika, if that's okay. Thanks.
Thank you, Kathleen. Hi, everyone. My name is Kika. I'm originally from Lisbon, Portugal, and currently I'm living in London, UK. I'm part of Y2Gether, which is an innovation agency, part of Accenture. And my job is basically to try to invent the future of, in this case, Europe. Most of the clients I work with are in Europe. And I've worked across many industries, and currently working with Kathleen and the YMCA, the World YMCA, to think about the future of meaningful work and what that means for you. A little bit about my path. I lived in Portugal until the end of my high school. I was in a French school, actually, which was an amazing experience and gave me a chance to learn lots of languages, which is great. I then moved to the UK to go to university, stayed there for 3 years, and then ended up, throughout those 3 years, did lots of internships in the summer, and ended up staying there with a job from one of those internships, and now recently, 3 years ago, moved to Accenture. I guess in terms of meaningful work for me, and something, I've had a few jobs along the way. I think for me, for my work to be meaningful, the people I work with are probably the most important part. No matter the mission, no matter the project, I think working with people that, first of all, you can have fun with, I think for me, so it gets me up in the morning to think that I'm going to work with an amazing set of people that have lots of interesting contributions and things to teach me. And also, I guess, then the purpose, and I think that's something that Nick has mentioned quite a lot, but I think this project, for example, has been an amazing experience so far, because the work that you all are doing is incredibly impactful, and I think that gives a sense of joy and accomplishment that sometimes in other projects perhaps it's lacking. So I would say that that is for me the meaning of meaningful work. At the same time, I think on the project that we've been doing, we've been realizing that meaningful work has different expressions around the world depending on the context, be it the cultural context or geopolitical context, but also personal, at a personal level, what that means. And I think I invite you all to think about what that means for yourselves within your context. But yeah, that would be mine.
Thank you. So people make a difference.
Definitely. I would say so. I think across the many jobs that I've had so far, the ones that I had to leave, the hardest part was leaving because of the people. And the one that I'm in now, same thing. I find that intellectual stimulation is something that is very important for me at work, to feel challenged, to be pushed, to be put out of your comfort zone. And that's only possible when you're working with people that will do that for you. Mm-hmm. They will throw new challenges, they will question you, they will provoke you to think differently, and to be surrounded by a team of people that, has the guts to do that, then yeah.
Excellent.
So.
Thank you. Well, a lot of questions and follow up to that, but that's great. Thank you, Kika. So Victoria, yes, and I think you may even have a few photos that we should show. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. I think they're writing up here. Yeah.
I think. Hi everyone. My name is Victoria. I come from Ukraine. From a small town, Boyarka. It's near our capital, Kiev, but because of the war, I currently live with my little son in Germany. And I studied languages. I worked as a technical translator. And I think that part of my life I didn't even think of meaningful work, because my parents were living most of their lives in Soviet Union, and at that time and place, you just had to find a job, and that was it, and a better job for life. So that was actually at first something I was looking for. But then I think also with the help of YMCA, after I joined these organizations around 8 years ago, I think that I started widening my horizons, and I started seeing more of the world. I started meeting new people, hearing their perspectives, and that provoked me to think in what is meaningful work for me, and do I have it? And I think that for now I can definitely say that meaningful work to me is the one that connects to my heart, to my values, but also the one that makes me feel fulfilled as well. And I'm really glad I have it now.
Excellent, thank you.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry, I just want to say a few words about this picture, because so that was made in Germany, and that was made because we did this exhibition, Voices of War, and the question on it in German says, "Who am I now?" And I think that it's an important question for many Ukrainians who left Ukraine because of the war, and that I was asking myself too. And the thing that I went to YMCA in Bavaria, and I got the job there, it also was based on the values, and I was sure that if I go there, I really find something meaningful for me. So they helped me answer this question, and I appreciate that.
That's powerful. That maybe links with some of the things that Nick said previously about helping to young people to understand also what they're passionate about, but also the problem that they want to solve. I mean, I'm relatively new to YMCA. I started here with YMCA only about 2 years ago, and one of the things that I have been really impressed about, and I'm going to ask Pedro to speak a little bit about too, is it seems to me YMCA is not a numbers organization. We happen to work with a lot of young people, but from what I've seen, every person that comes into a YMCA is a human being, and we ask the question, so who are you? And maybe also then, how can we help you realize your potential? And when I was prepping for this with Pedro, one of the things that Pedro mentioned to me, which I thought was a pretty incredible point, is how can we help people to discover their life project and what that life project is, and build that life project. And perhaps that links a bit, Nick, with what you were saying previously about the problem. What is the problem they want to solve? Pedro, if you could speak maybe a little bit about that and how you at YMCA Spain are working with young people to help define their life project.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting us to the panel. Meaningful work is part of a meaningful life, that's for sure. I fully agree with him. I'm sure you all know people who who don't have a wonderful job, maybe, but they do it with happiness. They do it with a sense of service, and they brighten your day a little bit every day, And that happens in the parks, that happens in the bars, that happens everywhere. So what we found out, going to the point, is that we serve a lot of people, a lot of young people that they don't even need a meaningful job. They need a job, so because they have no income. And unfortunately, in Spain, we have a 28%. That's data from May. 28% of youth unemployment. That's people below 25. But if you think that's a lot, think that, and Alexander should be around, I don't know if Alexander is here, we talked about this. Alexander is the National General Secretary of YMCA Sweden. Sweden now is 20%, is over 20%. So this is something that in the UE, in the European Union, is decreasing, because after the crisis, not COVID crisis, the crisis before, it's decreasing, but it's still very high. Very high. There are around 3 million people, young people in Europe, below 25, that want to find a job and they don't. So, what is the point here? What we find out with these kids that are out of everything is that they don't have a life project. It's what we're trying to work on. Our guess is that as long as they live in difficult families, probably with all kinds of issues there, they are not able to have a project for their life. And you will understand this very quickly. If your dad was an engineer and your mother was a lawyer, probably you have a college degree. And if not, you are the exception. On the other side with these kids, the exception is the one that reaches college, not finishes college, reaches college. And there are a number of cases. That's why it's important for us, to work with them on that accessible life project. So what do you want to be? How are you going to reach that? And here comes the second part. It's a long-term intervention, very long. I mean, we have to be with them maybe for 10, 12 years. We have to connect with them with 10, 12 years. And that's the difficult part also. But we want to start from the very, very beginning, which is, what is your real accessible life project? I don't know if that answered your question.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. It makes me think about a conversation that we had, Victoria, as well, about the role of resilience and agility and knowing who you are on the one hand, but being able to redefine who you are. If you could maybe speak just a little bit about resilience and agility and how you were able to become who you are now and the role that those two factors have played.
Thank you for the question. I think that before I came here, before I had to start from scratch everything in Germany, I even didn't think I was so resilient. But I was really inspired by one word about 5 years ago. You mentioned VUCA today, and I heard about the word changelocity. It's from change and velocity, like enormous and rapid speed of change. And I was thinking a lot about this, that really it's not a problem that we are facing changes. It's an internal part of our life already. And the sooner we accept this, the less fear there would be, and the more curiosity about everything happening. And I think that also thanks to my family, thanks to YMCA training and experience, I was agile and resilient enough to make new steps into unknown. And I think that it's something incredible that we really can give young people as a skill. Because we never know what happens. We're not prepared for what is happening in Ukraine now, but at least we have this as a core that would help us move further.
You mentioned curiosity, and this is something that we spoke a little bit about, and how curiosity has guided your pathway, until now, and helped you get to where you are at the moment. I'd like to invite you to speak a little bit about curiosity.
Sure, thank you. I think curiosity, same as resilience, is a super important skill or characteristic to have. It is what's going to push you over your comfort zone or the space that you already know, and that's probably what's going to put you in positions to elevate yourself. I'd say part of curiosity is, I would say my motto throughout my career so far has been fake it till you make it. Most of the things I've done for the first time, I had no idea what I was doing, and it's curiosity that's going to push you to be able to do it. It's the 10 hours of Googling to understand how to do this. It's the going to ask 5 of my colleagues what they think about it to figure it out. And it's curiosity that is going to allow you to map whatever is happening around you to figure out how to do it. And it's put me in amazing positions so far in my life to be able to have, I guess, the confidence to step into situations that can sometimes feel above your level. And I think at the same time, curiosity to understand those around you, because there is no way you can build a career without, first of all, having a group of people around you that believe in you, because those are the ones that are going to give you the best and most amazing opportunities. And second of all, to kind of understand the pathways that those people have done, like you would be surprised by how much everyone around you, like the 5 people in your team, how much they've gone through. And the curiosity to learn about that and the intricacies of their own lives and pathways and the barriers they face and the mistakes they've made. There's so much to learn from that as well. And like just sitting here next to you already, Victoria, I'm learning so much just from having curiosity to learn about other people's lives, I think.
Thank you. Nick, did curiosity play a role in how your career path evolved? I mean, it was a very dynamic career path that you've had, and you've had the luxury, and maybe it's also the force of will to forge what you are doing today. How did this happen?
Yeah, I'm going to talk an interesting concept about serendipity here. So I think like there is actually kind of, so I felt that I was very lucky in my own career path. I met the right people at the right time. I moved to this country and then this opportunity popped up, etc. But I think there is a kind of an art to cultivating serendipity and like the possibility for good luck in your own careers. And that means being open to new experiences. It means talking to strangers. It means going to new countries. And I think obviously a lot of it is a privilege, but I think there are some small steps everyone can take to kind of cultivate possible serendipity, and there's a really cool book about it that I'll share. So I think it's about being curious, and then that opens up all kinds of new pathways of potential good luck that can fall for you.
Fantastic.
Fully, I would say you make your own luck.
Yeah.
Like, fully, I can completely resonate with what you're saying. I've always felt like I've been so lucky, but most of the time you make your own luck by nurturing your relationships around you and showing open-mindedness fully.
Pedro, how can we, as YMCA, we work with a lot of vulnerable young people, a lot of young people who maybe didn't grow up with parents like you or Victoria, even you, who gave you that confidence to be curious, and the confidence, the self-value and trust to be resilient. Pedro, you work at YMCA Spain with a lot of very vulnerable young people. You talk about 10 to 12 years of a pathway, which is a very long time, of course. But how, in your view, I'd like to invite you to reflect on what Nick has just said about serendipity, but also YMCA helping young people to develop that confidence, or the curiosity, that ability to be brave, to forge their pathway. So to invite you to reflect on that and see how can we do that more, how can we do it better?
I believe we already do. We already do. That's probably one of the outcomes that is inside the YMCA, and that is not putting value enough, because sometimes people don't even want to listen much about it. But for example, camp experience is something that really builds confidence and takes you out of your comfort zone and brings you, and even volunteer. When you volunteer and you meet people who are very different from you, from a very different background, and you really are building the pieces of a great person. I've checked that many times in the YMCA, and here you can see a lot of leaders and people that just you ask for something and you have 5 people to do it, 10 people to do it. I mean, and that is not different of what a good boss will identify in a worker, in someone working. For example, we hire a lot of our volunteers because we are growing and we need people. But at the beginning, we were hiring a lot of scouts. By the way, because they had this sense of this feeling of commitment, and maybe they were not great at developing the task, but they had this commitment. And commitment for us at that moment was very, very important. So I would say 3 or 4 people in direction in the head of YMCA Spain are scouts, come from scouts. So yeah, and it's something we learned to value, and we found out that a lot of companies value that people have done things that are not exclusively related to academic issues. We find out a lot.
Right. Thank you. I'm going to throw a question out to all of you. And I would just like to encourage you to see how we can discuss this together, and perhaps invite as well the audience to join that discussion. Meaningful work, we don't have a definition for it yet here in the YMCA. We are an enormously diverse movement. We are global, we are local. When I talk to partners about YMCA, I often say we are not just passionately, but we are violently local. We fiercely defend and stand for, and I think this is part of what makes YMCA so incredible. We are fiercely local. So, in a world, YMCA's world, where we are global and we are fiercely local, we are diverse. Is it possible to have a definition? I don't know if it's a one-size-fits-all definition. Is it possible to have a definition for meaningful work that can be relevant to this entire movement? And where might we start? So I'm going to just throw that out to you all.
I think I can maybe play back some of the things I've been hearing from people at YMCA. So in the current project that I'm doing with Kathleen, we have been speaking to people across YMCA, across the world, and asking them exactly this question to kind of understand where we can make the most impact. And it's been fascinating to hear that in different contexts, it really will change, but it's been fascinating to hear some similarities and some, I guess, common themes around the way people define meaningful work. And I think the one that I've heard that resonated with the most was, we spoke to Gloria from World YMCA as well, and she mentioned to us that for her meaningful work was, and I'll just play back her framework because I really enjoyed it, a balance between intrinsic and extrinsic value. So what that means is oh my God, I'm not going to say this correctly. Extrinsic value would be the recognition you get from your peers, from the people around you, as well as the job security that it provides you, so getting a fair pay and social security around it to feel safe in the work that you do. And intrinsic value would be more around what it brings you. And no matter what type of job you do, and I think this really relates to what Pedro was saying, like you could be making coffees, or you could be defining the next policy for your country. If it brings you value and if it brings you well-being and happiness, then the intrinsic value is there. And I think this is such a nice framework because it can very easily be translated into different contexts. But I guess maybe you have other ways of defining it, but I really like this one.
I would use a nice German word, jein, yes and no. So I don't think you can have a one-size-fits-all definition of what meaningful work means, but I think there are such great red threads running throughout that you can have an umbrella term which is then nuanced into different contexts. And if you look at like the Japanese concept of ikigai, it's kind of similar in Indonesia with guyub, but more of a community element to it. And then again in the Philippines with, again, slight tweaks. And our global research show that things like finding purpose, finding meaning in young people's motivation to start change making is actually remarkably similar across cultures. So I think there are definite red threads, but they should be very nuanced according to the local culture.
Helpful.
I might add that I really liked what Nick said today about helping young people find their passion. And I think that we as YMCA could really focus on finding time in all our busy schedules and operational work that we have to really stop and think, have we asked everyone what their passions were? Have we gave them platform and space to talk about this? And if, going back to me personally, I think that it's also about asking myself this question after some time, because at different moments in your life, this meaning can change for you. The meaningful work that I have at home has been good, but for example, at this moment and in this place, meaningful work is something else for me. And that's so important to go back to this question again and again in your life.
That's a very good point.
I will say that it's something that really feels reasonably all your areas of life, including income, for sure, including life, family life, including that's a meaningful work. And something we have to keep in mind for these generations is that they're going to have many jobs. So the sense of progressing, it's and having different meaningful works in their lives, that's going to be very important. Very, and try to help them to find the meaning of their job, especially if their job has a meaning, a special meaning.
If I can add to that, actually, I think something related to what you mentioned as well, I think adaptability is super important, and I think something that perhaps older generations had the same job for various decades, and nowadays new generations are entering the labor market and probably will have 10 of them. I think it can impact your sense of identity, because I think naturally we all attach a sense of meaning and self-worth to the work that we do, which is super important because it does to some extent give you motivation and commitment and proactivity in your work. But I think at the same time there's a super important balance to be created in where your work and your job does not define you and does not define your identity, and there should be a sort of sense of detachment from it to a certain extent, because you will have to change jobs and you will have to change projects, and so to keep that sense of adaptability as you go through by keeping a healthy detachment from your job, I think is super important.
Brilliant. So I'm going to open the floor, actually. I'd love to get your thoughts. We've had some, really thought-provoking questions here. We haven't had a chance to really hash through some of the painful points, I think, that Nick brought up before, too, around climate change as well and digital. But I think, I read line through here is passion, it's people, it's problems, which are going to change. It's empowering young people to focus on solutions or problem solving rather than a specific profession. These are maybe some of the red lines through through YMCA where we might be able to find ourselves in our sweet spots. I think all of these are areas where YMCA does have a sweet spot because we focus on people and not on the production line, if you will, of bringing people in, skilling, and out. But we really focus, it's the 10-year project, it's the life project, as Pedro was saying. So I'd like to open the floor to you. We need to see how we get some mics, I think, out to you all. What questions do you have, or what reflections do you have? You're going to go home. You are the change makers. We're living in a disruptive society. It's going to become more and more disruptive. You are empowered. You are the change makers. You're going to take this forward. You work with millions of young people in your YMCAs. What other questions or reflections do you have?
Okay. Yeah, I have just a quote, actually, that I would like to speak to. It's a quote by Howard Thurman, and I'm Conrad, by the way, from Sweden.
Thanks, Conrad.
It says, "Don't ask what the world needs. Ask what makes you come alive and go do it. Because what the world needs is people who have come alive."
Thank you.
Thank you.
So YMCA can help young people, help our communities to come alive. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Peter from England. When I'm listening to you beautiful people on the panel, I'm thinking back to the YMCA young people in my YMCA. And I'm thinking that we're trying to, for example, improve their reading age from the age of 11 and their mathematics skills in the similar sort of thing. So I love the idea of resilience. I think that's great, and adaptability. I think that's fantastic. And I'd just like to reflect on this definition of meaningful work. And I think somehow we need to incorporate some form of journey in there, because we're all going to be at different places. And by definition, perhaps your audience here is probably a little bit further along the journey than other people. But just to remember that it's a massive, great big spectrum from all different sorts of cultures and backgrounds, and think about 20%, what you said, Pedro, in Spain, 20% of young people just want a job, let alone a meaningful job, let alone one they can impact on society and the world. So it's a really broad spectrum.
Thank you.
Robert here from the Netherlands. Nick, first of all, thank you for the remark in your speech before that you have to love your problem and not the solution. So I'm very happy with my belly from now on, so thank you for that. But besides that, yesterday I was very lucky to have a short talk with Kika, and the question you asked Kathleen about is there a definition? It's a kind of a container concept at the moment, and I think it's, if we can look at external, to make a case for support, it has to be really in line with what Pedro was saying. It's about people giving a chance, a fair chance, equal chance for work. But the remark I would like to say is also that we have to look internally to our YMCA, our human capital. We have a lot of volunteers in our organization, and what do we do for them to have meaningful work as well, because they are the representatives, our ambassadors, to do that work. And one step further is also to look at our YMCAs as a professional organization. Do we provide our staff and our meaningful work? So we're luckily, there are some countries who have good unions who stand up for their rights, have a correction of inflation and so on. But we also face that within Europe, there are countries who can't. So that's a remark. So I really encourage it to have the case for support on these concrete things, like Pedro is saying. But I also would like to give us a task as a YMCA internally, as YMCA Europe as a whole. How can we do that for our volunteers, our human capital, and for the future, for the long term? I don't know, that's not a question. Maybe you can find a question out of this, Kathleen, but I just wanted to say something.
We need to walk our talk. Thank you. So I think there's one other question here, and then I'm going to invite you all to just give us, think about, while we listen to this last question, a few closing remarks on a question of, if YMCA could be best at one thing in meaningful work, what must we be best at? So, but let's hear the final question. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Paul from YMCA Europe. I quite often see YMCA colleagues and youth workers burning out, because of the pressures of work. I firmly believe that meaningful work also means a work-life balance. And therefore, the question to the panel is, how do you achieve work-life balance?
Thank you. So I think with that, we might bring the mics back up. That's good. I invite you all to address that question and then provide your final thoughts. Thank you. How can we help youth workers find a balance? They have tough work. Imagine, Pedro, in the work that you're doing, also Victoria, working with, refugees as well. I mean, it's tough. How can we help our staff also have a work-life balance? And Nick, you work with a lot of change makers who are probably under a lot of stress too. How can we support them?
Sure, thank you. I think that's a super relevant question, especially for young people, because I think we tend to have the urge to prove ourselves, and it's something that it's kind of requested from us as well in the workplace most of the time. We're young, we don't have a lot of experience, and that sometimes doesn't mean we don't know what we're doing, but I think there's an extra pressure to prove ourselves. And I think burnout is definitely a reality. Like I myself have been in situations where I was close to it, and I think it's also instilled in a mentality of perfectionism. But that's very personal. But yeah, I think it's a super important topic, and I think for those that feel like they could potentially go into that space of burnout, I think that the topic of detachment that I've mentioned earlier is super important. Ultimately, unless you're a doctor, no one's going to die if you go home and rest. Your work can be still done tomorrow, and the impact of it not being done today is probably going to be not that important. Your self-worth and your self-value and how you perceive yourself doesn't come from how many more hours you stay at work after your boss has left. And you are not, ultimately, you are not able to bring your best self to work if you don't feel at your best. And so if you're not taking care of yourself, showering, sleeping, eating, doing a bit of exercise and socializing with your family and friends, then you are definitely not going to bring a lot to work because your brain is not going to be at its best. So I think investing in your own time outside of work is actually an investment into how much you're bringing to work.
So this is a nice link with Robert's comment about we also need to be walking our talk as YMCA is on that. Thank you. I mean, I think we could wrap up here unless there's a burning comment on the work-life balance. Otherwise, I'd like to put you all on the hot spot. What can YMCA be best at? If we are really going to focus on making a meaningful impact for young people, is there one thing that we can or maybe must be best at? And if so, in your view, what would that be?
I would try to combine the answer with the question about work-life balance, because I believe that what we can do, it's very simple. We can be there for them. And why I say this, because right now I'm not really good with this work-life balance. The bright side is that I am happy to be part of two great projects for Ukrainian people. One in YMCA Bavaria, helping refugees integrate, and the other one also supported by Accenture in Ukraine, educational hubs, helping people with employment. But knowing that now this work is it's something that cannot wait. I don't give myself too many breaks. But then there is YMCA, there is my family, and there are people who care. And even sometimes when I go to YMCA and my colleagues tell me, okay, Victoria, how are you? Did you have enough sleep? And I think that that is the really important thing we can do, to be there and to be observative, to listen to people. And then for some it would be passion, we could find help. For some it would be a helping hand. And for some it would be just, a question that was asked in the right time. So.
Nick, from your reflections and experience?
Yeah, so I think there's a real risk at the moment, and particularly talking about vulnerable young people, etc., of a kind of a new inequality emerging of those young people who can navigate change and can be adaptable and resilient, and those who can't. And I think there's a real danger of that being the domain of the privileged. So I think one key thing that YMCA can do is really help all young people, particularly those most vulnerable, to be building that adaptability, resilience, and ability to navigate this world that we're in.
Thank you.
I want just to rescue a comment that I didn't make before, and I think it's crucial, and it's related to education. There is no meaningful world without meaningful education, and what we're seeing in many countries in Europe is that in the administration, in the government, education and employment are completely split. So we have a number of early school leavers, we forget about them, and we try to rescue them 4 or 5 years later as long-term unemployed. as people who have been unemployed for 3-4 years, and we don't know what's happening in the middle, you know. And that is something that we can advocate for, and we can even work for. I mean, to keep the kids the longest in the educational system, because there is a correlation between education and jobs, no doubt. So there is something. And the unique thing, or the very important thing that the Y can do for meaningful work, from my perspective, if I have to choose one out of all we do, is counseling, no doubt, counseling. Yeah. Because especially in Europe, there are hundreds of resources all around, but they are not connected at all. I mean, if you talk to one of our children, one of our young teenagers, and maybe he's been in Spain for 3 years, and he's been dropped into the educational system, and he fails, and he doesn't know anything about, he doesn't even have a life project, you know. So that counseling and helping people inside the system we already have, which is a quite luxurious system here in Europe, is something that can be done with not a lot of effort. And we also have a very important name. I mean, collaborating with the YMCA, I mean, you walk up to a company asking for mentorship, for example, and you have a YMCA name in your card, and it's a difference. It is a difference, because people usually like us. They want to connect with NGOs, and they want to be an NGO, if possible, big, and if possible, that don't ask for money. So that's if you don't ask for money, then it's very, very easy to get all that support. So counseling. So,
and this links with your comment, I think, as well. So listening, being there for people, making sure we don't let the most vulnerable fall between the gaps, education and counseling. Anything in addition?
Yeah, just one last comment. I think from all the conversations I've been having at YMCA for the past few weeks, I think your secret sauce is definitely the fact that you are so deeply well-rooted in your communities, and you've built one yourselves. Like, I think I'm incredibly impressed by the community you have here today, and like some have even described it as a family. And I think that's definitely your biggest strategic advantage when going and helping these people. That you create connections with the people you work with and that are part of your community in ways that big companies cannot, and they don't. And so that's what you have to offer them. And I think it relates to what Pedro is saying. Like, you have an edge, a strategic edge, when trying to go and create partnerships and getting support and connecting these young people to potential employers, where you're giving them something they don't have, which is that ultimate human connection with these people. And at the same time, if you think from their perspective, like, all of these companies are building ESG agendas, diversity and inclusion agendas. They want an into this world that they currently don't have. And you're giving them access to a talent pool of very diverse people that have a lot to offer. So I'd say use that edge as much as you can, because it will definitely bring you places where you already are, but even further. So yeah, that would be my comment.
Brilliant. Thank you all very, very much for your insights, for your energy, for your passion. I applaud you. Thank you. Juan? So we're not done yet. I think Juan has got, yes, a little brief thank you, well-deserved thank you to each of you for your time. And you want to introduce the next session?
Thank you so much. Thank you so much to all of you. And we have a little token of appreciation, but just a couple of short stories, you know, about how Nick was mentioning being in the right place at the right time. So just a few weeks ago, Vardam was at the network conference in Venice, in Italy. So one of his tasks was, when I was looking for a keynote speaker for this session. I said, Vardam, if you find someone on a network that can really inspire us and share, please let us know. He came back from the conference and said, well, we have really the right network. So I called Nick, and I was immediately fascinated by your way of expressing, by your inspiration, by your life, the work you do with youth, with young people. And I said, you need to meet Kathleen. You need to meet Kathleen. So we connected, and thank you so much for being here, for your generosity. for speaking to us together. This is for you.
Thank you so much. It was my pleasure.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Thank you so much. And Pedro, you know, this is one more adventure in our journey. So Pedro started his journey in YMCA when he was 18 years old at my local YMCA in Zaragoza, Spain. And he was a meaningful young man at that time already. So he found his vocation, his professional, so proud. And thank you so much for teaching us so much, Pedro, every time you join us at YMCA Europe. It's really a privilege. We're blessed. Thank you so much. It's not an envelope. It's not an envelope with a check. It's not an envelope. And Victoria, we've been sharing a lot over the past months. Thank you so much for your engagement with YMCA Ukraine, with YMCA Germany, and with Accenture. Thank you so much for connecting with all of us. May God bless you and your family and your country too. It's really a privilege to have you on board all the time. Thank you. And with Kika, you know, we just met. Thank you so much, Kathleen, for introducing us to Kika. We just met and we realized that actually my grandparents come from the same area in Portugal as her grandparents, which is absolutely amazing, a coincidence. And we were talking about the same food and the same traditions. Thank you so much, Kika, and for the work that Accenture continues doing with us and the trust that you provide through YMCA to YMCA Europe. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And last but not least, you know, Kathleen, your facilitation, the way you do it, the humble way in which you work with us in Europe is an inspiration for all of us. This is a real example of Vision 2030 in action. And thank you for accepting the invitation to facilitate this session. This is a privilege for us in Europe also to be with you and to connect with you. And this is only the beginning. Only the beginning. Thank you.
Thank you, Don. Thank you very much. Thank you.
And as a wrap-up of the session, we have a special input from Graham from Y2Gether International, which, as we wrap up on the 4 pillars, he's going to share with us in a couple of minutes a tool that they have developed actually at Y2Gether International, and we'll be very pleased to hear from you, and you may visit it or just take a seat.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Juan. I'll only keep you for just a moment, but I wanted to do 3 things with you. So the first thing is, can you grab your phone in your hand so that that's ready, because you're going to need it in just a moment. The second thing is, we've been journeying over these last few days around the 4 pillars. They're here in front of us. There has been some really, really fantastic and riveting conversation that's challenging and inspiring us. And so for just 10 seconds, I'd like you just to turn to somebody next to you and tell them one thing that you're going to do to take action to start living out and acting on these things. For 10 seconds, one thing. Go ahead. Okay, if you want to draw those conversations to a close now. So as Juan said, my name is Graham Hodge. I'm from Y2Gether International. Put your hand up if you've heard of Y2Gether International. A few of you. Well, if you haven't heard of Y2Gether International, we are an NGO. We're a development agency that is part of the YMCA family. And we exist, really, our vision is every young person's potential fulfilled. So what does that look like? Well, it looks very different all around the world. But I guess we are led by the local priorities of YMCAs and the young people that are a part of them and their communities. And we work in regions around the world most affected by poverty poverty and disaster, so mostly in low and middle income countries. And what we're aiming to see is really flourishing communities where young people are catalysts for change and they're enabled to live fulfilling lives in all sorts of different ways. That's what we're about. And we have a movement of supporters. We work with quite a number of you and also other YMCA family around the world. And one of the things that we're really committed to is Vision 2030, is these 4 pillars. And one of the things that we're doing with that is trying to provide support and capacity to YMCAs around the world who need support to enable these things to happen in their real everyday lives. And one of the things that we'd like to do for you is to try and help you with a tool. And I think there's a screen here, so this is where you need your phone. We have developed a bit of a tool. We've co-created this with our friends at YMCA Ireland, so a big thank you and shout out to our friends at YMCA Ireland. A round of applause to them. And it's been informed by conversations with young people and others in the YMCA movement globally. And it's a tool that is about to be published. So sadly, it's not quite ready. This is why you need to use the screen. But it's about to be published, and you will be the first to receive that. If you want to receive it, you can register there via that QR code or via that link on the screen. And it will use video, it will use sessions, ideas for engaging young people and your YMCAs in the 4 pillars. And what I'd encourage you to do is have a look at it, and if you find it useful, then use it. If you find it useful and you want to improve it or adapt it, go ahead. If you want to take it and rebrand it, go ahead and do that as well. It is a gift. It's hopefully a starter for conversation, but it's part of this commitment of trying to put these words that are so important into action so that we can see these 4 pillars really realized in the real world that we live in, and the YMCA having the greatest possible impact that we can. Does that sound like a good idea? All right, thank you.
Right, give them a round of applause, everyone. Oh, we made it. That was the last session, everyone. Oh, I know. But it isn't quite over yet. Speaking of resilience, today isn't quite over yet. So right now we're going to go into a spiritual session. If you want to go have a walk around and come back, or go have a breath of fresh air, this is the warmest room in the world. But at 4 p.m., so in a couple of minutes, we're going to start up some worship. And then after that, we're going to have a 1-hour break. During that session, the NGS will meet with the youth representative members in the downstairs room, and at 6:30 we're going to be having our celebration banquet next door, and that's 6:30 sharp. I will be wearing a blazer with some glitter. Come along, we're going to have some fun, we're going to have some music and dancing. Are you up for it, everyone? Well done. All right, 5 minutes and be back here. On you go.